So, we're talking today about prostate cancer, which unfortunately is the most common cancer in men in the United States of America.
The incidence of prostate cancer, as I indicated, is twice as common in Black men, and also the mortality, the death rate of prostate cancer is more common in Black men compared to their white male counterparts.
Hey guys, welcome to Getting in Good Trouble featuring Laura Cowan. And we're here tonight, as you know, we're showcasing all our activists and advocates and what they do out there in the field. And tonight we have an exciting guest I want you to meet, and a longtime friend of mine, and I was on his podcast as well. And we have in the house, Dr. Charles Modlin. Now, Dr. Modlin goes way back, people. Number one, he's a 27-year veteran. What service did you serve in, Dr. Modlin? What was that? Marines?
No. I'm just a veteran of Cleveland Clinic. That's maybe I should use a different terminology. But my father was a veteran in the United States Navy.
Got you.
And that's one way I've always said I've never been able to fill his shoes, and follow in that tradition. But yeah.
Yeah, we want to talk about Dad too. I had a question about him. I saw a little clip I want to talk to you about. So Dr. Modlin, we're going to start off right away and get going. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Oh boy, this is so exciting. I'm glad you're on the show. I'm all goosey right now, okay? So okay, Dr. Modlin, you had your internship in New York. That's your humble beginnings, right? So what brought you to Cleveland, Ohio though, from over there?
So going back, I actually grew up in central Indiana, a little town called Newcastle, Indiana. Population, probably about 18,000 people. And I think that's really what the population is now, roughly. From growing up in Newcastle, Indiana, then I went up to Chicago, Evanston, Illinois, more precisely, which is just north of Chicago, where I completed my undergraduate education at Northwestern University. I stayed in Chicago from 83 and 87 to go to the medical school right downtown Chicago, Northwestern University Medical School, which is called now the Feinberg School of Medicine. And then after that, I went to New York City to complete a 6-year residency in surgery and urologic surgery, urology. That was from 87 to 93. And then I came to Cleveland Clinic from 93 to 96 to do a kidney transplant fellowship to learn how to perform kidney transplant surgery. And then I stayed on staff at Cleveland Clinic from 1996 to 2021. So that was really 17 years of training, college, undergraduate college, medical school residency, fellowship, 17 years of training after high school.
Wow. That's a lot right there. Ooh. So you're the director of the Minority Men's Health Center and founder, aren't you?
So yeah, in 2003, I founded the Cleveland Clinic Minority Men's Health Fair. And then in 2004, I founded the Cleveland Clinic Minority Men's Health Center. But again, during my formalized medical training and education, I don't ever really recall receiving any formal education about healthcare disparities. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I finished my kidney transplant fellowship training in 1996 and I joined the staff at Cleveland Clinic that I then really became aware of an initiative called Healthy People 2000. That was an initiative set forth by President Bill Clinton in the Department of Health and Human Services to rally different healthcare institutions and physicians and healthcare providers together around a common cause, and that was to eliminate health disparities by the year 2000. Well, we didn't achieve that. President Bush created Healthy People 2010, Obama 2020, Trump 2030. So we're steadily working on not only reducing health disparities, but actually eliminating health disparities. So Yeah, I'm passionate about this work. This has been the work that I've been committed to, in addition to kidney transplantation and urology. It's very gratifying. But again, and we can get into this more later. But I was actually this is actually a calling. I believe this is actually a calling, and one of the main reasons I was put on earth, to serve the community and do this kind of work.
Yeah, you are an advocate for sure. My gosh, that's
Try to be.
awesome too. Yeah, and you're African American. Kudos. Woo! I'm so proud of you, Dr. Modlin.
No,
So
you.
we just had their health fair the 27th. And was it a full house?
So it was a full house, but you have to remember, I'm very greedy. So if we have 1,000 individuals, I want 2,000. If we have 2,000, I want 5,000, 5,000, 10,000. But yeah, it was a very successful event. This is our second year conducting the health fair at Metro. This would have been our 21st overall year, but we lost 2 years due to COVID. So we celebrated our 19th year. But I have to go back and remember that first year in 2003, the year of our first health fair, we had 35 men who showed up to undergo a variety of free health screenings from head to toe, receive health education. And those numbers really blossomed. They grew exponentially over a number of years. And I think the growth, first of all, I always attribute the success of the health fair due to the literally hundreds of volunteers every year who step up to give of their time, services, talents, and their hearts to serve the community. And, again, we call it the Minority Men's Health Fair. It's actually open to everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender. We specifically reach out to engage men of color, because men of color have the highest incidence of health inequities, health disparities out of any group in the country. African American men, for example, have a 4 to 6 years shorter life expectancy compared to their Caucasian American counterparts, and there's some startling statistics out there. African American men in many instances have a lower life expectancy than men in Bangladesh, which is a third world impoverished nation. So, and there's a lot that we can do about it. I personally believe, I can make a difference. I believe that we can collectively make a difference. And that's what it's all about. I mean, my father taught me at a very early age. I'm actually the first male from my family lineage to graduate from high school. My father would have, both my parents were born in 1924. My father, as I indicated, he had to actually leave high school in 11th grade to enlist in the United States Navy during World War II. So he never had an opportunity to finish his high school education. Right. And so when I graduated high school, my father was proud of me. Yes. When I graduated college, he was proud. Yeah. But he always says, okay, that's good, but what are you going to do now to serve the community? I'm thinking to myself, then I graduated medical school. He said, okay, that's good. What are you going to do now to use your education to get back to the community? And he said, you're fortunate to be in this position. You're here where you are, not based on your own accord. I mean, of course, he knew I had worked hard and made sacrifices, but he always reminded me there were a group of individuals, my ancestors, predecessors, those who came before me, that I was standing on their shoulders. They opened the pathway for me to achieve what I've been able to achieve. So I always want to give them recognition. So yeah, I didn't do anything on my own. So, so then I graduated medical school and internship, residency, fellowship, and I always remembered his admonition. It's my responsibility to give back to the community. And I also remember at a very young age, he would tell me, nobody cares about Black men. Growing up back in the 60s and 70s, I didn't really necessarily understand what he was saying, but as I grew and had lived experiences, I clearly understood what he was saying. And obviously, he didn't mean that nobody cares about Black men, but he was trying to prepare me for adulthood and for the experiences that I would, encounter as a Black male, growing up in America. And so I put everything together. Nobody cares about Black men. What are you going to do to serve the community? And as a urologist, we are medical and surgical subspecialists who have expertise in men's health. We diagnose and treat women as well also, but we particularly have expertise in the diagnosis and treatment of disorders involving, the male reproductive system, external genitalia, voiding issues, bladder. In addition, both in women and female, kidney cancer, bladder cancer, things of that nature, prostate cancer in men, prostate enlargement.
Yeah.
So everything just came to me after I visited it's called the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been down there.
No, but I heard about it.
Yeah, it's my family and I visited down there 2003. And I got so angry. My father said, sometimes you have to get angry and hate a situation so much in order to be able to overcome it. I got so angry seeing those pictures of the shackles around the neck with the spikes. The slaves were shackled with the around their wrists, their ankles, and pictures of lynchings and all this. So I knew that there was something I could do, when I learned about Healthy People 2000. And so it came to me like like an epiphany. Okay, I can actually create a impactful program at Cleveland Clinic. And that's how I came up with the Minority Men's Health Fair to Minority Men's Health Center. I went on to develop several other health equity programs, a minority stroke center, heart center, pulmonary, lung center, kidney hypertension center, a variety of programs that we developed there. I was there, during my 27 plus year history at Cleveland Clinic, and I'm doing, much of the same work now at Metro. So, that's just kind of a long-winded, summary of how I came to be where I am and where I continue to go. Right.
That's important. We have to know that the background. That, that is the future. Yeah. You also, as an advocate too for the youth, the younger people as well. I think you wrote a book about that, didn't you?
I wrote a book. It's called "It Isn't Difficult to Do It If You Know How to Do It." And
That's right.
Yeah. There's so I was invited, and I had the honor to give a commencement address over at John Hay High School in 2014. And after the commencement address, the commencement address, I focused on giving the graduating class some guidance, advice, based on some of my lived experiences, the wisdom that I've been able to accrue over the years, lessons I learned from those, whom I grew up around, my church community, teachers, professors, coaches, lessons I learned from their mistakes, from my mistakes, that I wanted to pass back to this younger generation.
Yeah.
My thought was, and we all understand that every young person needs to learn how to overcome hurdles, challenges, trials, tribulations. That's just part of maturing. But there are some hurdles, obstructions that actually can derail a young person's self-esteem or ability to succeed. And so I stepped back after that, giving that commencement address, and I said, listen, I should expand this into a book form. So I took about 4 or 5 years to actually compose this book.
Wow.
I didn't write on a continuous basis because I was, still performing surgery and kidney transplants, and little by little, I wrote the book, and there's an interesting story about how the title came about. This is actually
that's it.
Yeah, I say they should have put a better looking guy on the cover. Maybe would have attracted more attention to.
No.
But the book came about, the cover or the title of the book. It isn't difficult to do it if you know how to do it. So my daughter Hannah, I always have to think, she's 25 years old now.
Oh wow.
Or she'll be 25 this year. And she was 3.5 years old. She was playing a video game. We had a nanny at the time. The nanny was watching her play with the joysticks, and our nanny, we call her C, said, Hannah, that looks very difficult to do. Is it difficult to do it? And without missing a beat, playing the joysticks in a baby's voice, she goes, "It isn't difficult to do it if you know how to do it."
Whoa.
And I say that's one of the most profound statements I've ever heard. It's on par with something that Plato, Socrates, Aristotle would say.
Right.
And I say it's a brilliant title because I didn't come up with the title, my daughter did, but it says it means what it says. I mean, the title. If you know how to do something, meaning that if you're willing to take guidance, advice, receive wisdom from somebody who has already done what you aspired, who has already achieved what you aspire to achieve, doesn't have to be the same profession, but they've had certain lived experiences. You can actually learn from an older person's lived experiences, and also an old guy like me can learn from the younger generation, so we can learn from each other. So
that's right.
It isn't difficult to do it if you know how to do it.
Look at that.
The podcast that you do, it's a little bit easier than maybe when you first started because you have experience and you've gained knowledge, expertise. You have you're a great producer, and collectively, you have more wisdom, and the same philosophy. Yeah. Because we do know that, as I said, especially students of color, for various reasons, we do know that there are some people who get derailed from the outset, or they may be on their success journey. They may meet an obstruction, a hurdle, a challenge that they don't know how to overcome.
Yeah.
And the book is replete with advice, guidance. It's not an autobiography, but it's a reference. I consider this to be a reference, where individuals will go back, to this book several times and really learn from the content. There's also a companion workbook and journal that goes along with it. Also, it's available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, various bookstores. But I wholeheartedly believe that this book can actually make a difference in a young person's life, and again, a person of any age. Setting out on the success journey. Yeah, it's a resource. It's definitely a teaching tool. I believe every student, parent, grandparent, coach, teacher, professor, mentor, advocate would benefit from having this book. And this is not me just saying this because I wrote it, but so it's interesting. I did an interview with Sharon Reed on the Black News Network. This is about a year and a half ago.
I remember her.
Yeah, and she was down in Atlanta. And so I wrote this book word for word myself. And in preparation for the interview, I read the book from cover to cover. Even though I wrote it, I never actually sat down and read it cover to cover. I was actually, oh wow, I actually kind of wowed myself,
Yeah.
So, oh yeah. But see, the point is, but the point is, I wish I had known the information contained in this book way back then.
Right.
I'd be further ahead than I am now. So
look at that. I love it. I love that. That is awesome, man. So you say you can get it on Amazon, where else?
Barnes and Noble online.
Noble, okay.
And selected bookstores locally. It's in the Cleveland Public Libraries, I believe, if somebody wants to check it out as well.
Oh, wow.
And
I want to order it. I don't want you to autograph it. I'm going to order it on Amazon the next time.
The county library system, I think, has it also.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break right now. That was a lot right there. Look at that, folks. You didn't know, did you? So hold on, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more of Dr. Charles Modlin. Don't go back. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
And it's either you're going to win and advance and go on to win a state championship, or you're going to lose and go home and watch them go on and win a state championship.
They always had all these super athletes.
Well, I've always felt that rivalries are what get you up in the morning.
One side was Moeller, one side was Princeton, and I called it the king of the block.
Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. Let the other guy lose.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the second half of Getting in Good Trouble with Laura Cowan. And we just left off with Dr. Charles Modlin talking about his wonderful book, It Isn't Difficult to Do It If You Know How to Do It, Out of the Mouths of Babes. There you go. Look at that. You got to give her credit for that later on, okay? Tell her.
Very much so.
Okay, Dr. Modlin. So now we're going to talk about your podcast, Music and Medicine. So, hey guys, don't forget, share and like and subscribe to this channel, okay? So Music and Medicine, what brought that title about? I see the medicine part, the music?
Yeah. Well, actually in high school, I had to make a decision. So I'm an old trumpet player. Used to be pretty good. I was all-state, Indiana all-state band, way back in the day.
Yeah.
And I had to make a decision my junior year in high school, whether to pursue a career in music versus pursuing a career in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And, I obviously enjoyed studying chemistry, physics, biology. But I loved playing the trumpet also. I was in the marching band. I was first chair in the wind ensemble jazz band. I was the guy playing the high notes in the jazz band.
Yeah.
Never as good as Miles Davis. And he was a role model for me in many ways. But
Wow.
I remember my grandmother, Claire Hampton. She became elderly and just to briefly, we had to move her into our house and take care of her. And I watched how my mother would take care of her. She started falling and we had to put her into a nursing home.
Yeah.
But we would go visit her on a daily basis, literally. And I would go out, help her, eat, get her down, push her in her wheelchair, get her water, things like that. And then later on, I worked in high school as an orderly and part-time also during my college. I'd go back to Indiana and work as an orderly in the hospital. Alongside the nurses, and I acquired a great sense of satisfaction taking care of patients. And a number of the patients that I interacted with were elderly individuals from the church I went to growing up, Wiley United Methodist Church. I vividly remember those individuals who many were my Sunday school teachers, for example. Then I was in turn taking care of them. So
look at that.
So yeah,
Ooh-wee.
Yeah. And I remember my trumpet instructor told me, okay, well, you should pursue a career in medicine. You can always play, trumpet on the side. And unfortunately, I still play in a Shaker community band. I wish I would have practiced a little bit more over the years. I always say think about it, just 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, but you get so busy, doing,
you get busy, I know. You put it down, it accumulates dust, I know.
Yeah. We start practicing for the Shaker community band in about a month or so. So I gotta take it out and clean it up and get that armature back. But so music and medicine, I've been giving community health talks and educational health talks for a number of years, and I understood the fact that the audience would be more likely to tune in from my perspective, if I could also entertain them. And I thought about learning how to become a stand-up comedian, but then I was told I didn't have what it takes. So, so I thought then I would maybe invite, some legitimate entertainers, musicians, artists, singers, dancers, that kind of thing.
That's right.
So yeah, we've been doing this for maybe 2.5 years. I have a co-host, Jerome Brown. The producer, Russell Johnson, and Ken Hawkins, K-Hawk 2 Productions.
Ken Hawkins, yeah. All the old players.
Yeah. So, no, we have a lot of fun. We do the podcast maybe once a month or so. We thought about trying to do it more often, with work and everything, you get busy. But we've had a lot of fun on the program. You've been our guest as well, so we appreciate that.
Yes, I love it too. And it was like, wow, you should have thought this a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Love it. Okay. So, reading about dear old Dad, Dad Charles Modlin Sr., he stated that nothing in life is work. is all exercise. So I see right there, you already had a figurehead right there with doing with health, you know, and he was a record, a runner, a track runner. Wow.
So he actually participated, and I think he started around age 55, 57, something like that. He participated in the organization, the National Senior Games Association. Some people call it the Senior Olympics.
Yeah.
And so in 2006, and they had the national games every 2 years. They had local games every year. He was the most decorated National Senior Games Association track and field champion in the most decorated in the state of Indiana. In 2006, we went down to Pittsburgh in the national games. He set 4 national records: the 100 meter, the 200 meter, the 400 meter, and the long jump for men 80 years, over the age of 80.
Wow.
And I don't think he passed in 2010, but I'll tell you what, I mean, he could, when he was 80 years old, he could have, outrun me. So
incredible,
phenomenal shape. But, like I said, he was in the Navy after he was in the Navy for 7 years. Then he worked for essentially 40 years in a foundry. And at a couple time points over, certain summers when I was working, during college, I'd go back home for my summers to work. He had me in that foundry.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember getting burnt with some hot metal on my shoulder, and I would look around and he was just a workhorse. Nobody could outwork him. Caused a lot of resentment in a lot of people, because he worked so hard. He set a pace that a lot of people couldn't keep up with.
Yeah, yeah.
He was really John Henry. And, I don't know if everybody knows the story about John Henry, whether he was a mythical character or a real character. He was a black railroad worker.
Oh, okay.
And
Yes, okay.
Yeah. He could always outdo everybody in driving those railroad ties.
Yes.
And then they invented the steam engine. This is back in the late 1800s. They invented the steam engine, and the steam engine, the steam engine challenged him, John Henry, a mortal man, as to whether or not he could drive those railroad ties, better, faster, quicker than the steam engine. And he actually beat the steam engine.
Wow.
But unfortunately, at the end of the competition, he passed out and died from a massive heart attack, myocardial infarction. And the reason I tell this story is my father was John Henry. He was the best representation of John Henry. He had a remarkable work ethic, but you have to remember, in growing up being born in the 20s, growing up through the Great Depression, the segregation, Jim Crow, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Incredible.
He always felt that he had to prove himself. And he did that for the betterment of his family. He wanted to serve as the best example for us, so we develop a strong work ethic and know how to overcome, obstacles and oppositions. But he felt that he had to prove something, quote unquote, to the man.
Yes.
And he, as a consequence, he both benefited. You mentioned he was healthy. That's correct. But at the same time, he spent a lot of time trying to prove that the black man wasn't lazy.
That myth. Yep.
And that, because that perception prevailed back then, and he was going to make sure that, he wanted to show me as his only son and my 4 sisters that, we didn't have to be stereotyped like that.
Yes.
Nobody could outwork him. Like I said, I've never been able to feel it. But see, he's the reason I do what I do. My mother also. But he's the reason, that I'm driven to serve the community. I've watched him. He was the lay leader and deacon of the church, and
Hmm.
I watched how he always reminded me, he goes, Jesus was a servant leader. I mean, if
Boom.
Jesus could serve, the Son of God, then he goes, I can too. There's
Mhm.
nothing, there's nothing in this world that is work, it's all exercise.
All exercise. That's right. That's what he said.
Yeah, I
I
was
love
thinking about
it.
that yesterday that you mentioned. I was thinking about that just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, look at that. Woo.
yeah,
Give me pills.
yes, yeah.
Well, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about, when we come back, we're going to talk about a lady who's a wife and a sister and an aunt. And they're just in her community. You know who that is, but we'll talk about it when we'll be right back. Stay tuned, people. Don't go away. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to Getting in Trouble. Good trouble with Laura Cowan. So, okay, we left off talking about dear old dad. We're going to talk about another young lady here, huh?
Yes.
Also, she's first Black teacher in Henry County, Indiana, graduating from Ball State University with a master's of elementary education degree while raising 5 children. Now, who could that be?
So there's a lady that I knew who raised me, actually gave me birth, Grace Hampton Modlin.
There you go.
My mother, yeah, she a remarkable woman. Like you said, the first Black school teacher in the history of Henry County, Indiana. That's just 2 counties over from Indianapolis, east of Indianapolis.
Look at that.
Yeah, so she graduated in, I forget the exact year, 40, 42, something like that, from high school. And she had a scholarship to attend Butler University in Indianapolis for 1 year. At the end of the year, she could not re-enlist because the family could not support her, going back to college. She had to get a job and work and actually help out the country also during World War II. But she always aspired to become a school teacher. And with 4 kids still at home, 4 small kids, she made the decision to improve our lives. And she made the decision to go back to Ball State. It was called Ball State Teachers College at the time. 16 miles away in Muncie, Indiana. She would drive up to night school. Back then, driving 16 miles was considered a long distance back then.
Yes.
Especially, by herself in the middle of the night. And, I'm not proud of the fact that we were noisy, rowdy kids, needy kids, wanting their mother, and we didn't really necessarily give her the time she needed to study or that kind of thing. We were very needy. And but anyway, but she graduated with her bachelor's. Then she went on to receive a master's degree in elementary education. And being the first Black school teacher, you can imagine some of the hurdles, trials, tribulations that she went through. There were a number of white parents who didn't want their white children in the Black teacher's classroom. And but again, she didn't let that deter her. She knew she had the credentials. She had the education and training, and she was a great teacher. She actually came to be very celebrated, actually. I remember when I was 6 years old, she took me up to her night school class, and I was running up and down the aisles in the auditorium. I can remember like it just happened yesterday. The professor walked into the room. She grabbed me by the arm, pulled me in, and the professor, because the class is going to start, the professor goes, "Well, I see you have a guest. Can you introduce him?" So my mother introduced me, And she goes, "This is my son, and one day he'll be going to college also."
Mm.
And I tell that story because that's when it hit me, 6 years old, that I knew that my parents had placed expectations. The key word is expectations on me to do the best that I could do in school, to respect my elders, my teachers, my professors.
Right.
But again, to do the best that I could do, and to show respect to my elders. And I think, not in all cases, of course, but in many situations, I'm a little bit perturbed because I think maybe we don't place the same degree of expectations on our young people. Again, that's just my perception.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Again,
you
I'm not trying to stereotype everybody. There's a lot of great parents and coaches out there. Trust me, I know. But I think we need to keep pushing. We need to keep not excessively, but appropriately pushing, instilling a high sense of self-worth, self-confidence in our younger generation, but also place expectations on them to achieve to the best of their abilities. They don't have to be Rhodes Scholars or anything like that, but to achieve to the best of their abilities. That's what it's all about.
That's right. Incredible. Isn't that something? Listening to your mom and dad, and a lot of people I know too in the past, they say Black people are lazy. How in the world? Come on, okay? They have them walk to work. They didn't even own vehicles, and it was miles getting there.
Right.
If you want to back it up all the way back, they worked in them cotton fields from morning to night with no pay.
Exactly.
Oh, but we're lazy.
Yeah,
Isn't
exactly.
that incredible? Incredible, Dr. Modlin. I tell you, that's a teachable moment right there. You have two wonderful parents, and look at the product today. So you should be awfully proud.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're going to close it out, but I wanted to talk to you real quick about COVID-19, because I know I read that Governor Mike DeWine, back in 2020, appointed you to serve on the Ohio Governor's Minority COVID-19 Strike Force. Wow. Now, did you find a lot of African Americans had that stereotype when they talked about the vaccine? Yeah.
Very much so. Actually, initially, when I think back, and by the way, COVID is still, amongst us. It's not really a pandemic state. We just have to monitor, the number of new cases and protect ourselves accordingly. But I remember, and again, I was at Cleveland Clinic at the time when the pandemic started. There, people, Black people, people of color, they would come to my office, and then they would joke about it and say, "Well, Black people, we're immune, we're not susceptible to COVID," because that's what they thought. I don't really know where that came about, that misconception, but in reality, Black people were more susceptible due to a lot of the chronic disease states and social determinants of health. And so, the governor appointed me actually to head up their education and outreach subcommittee of the COVID task force, strike force, which I did for a couple years. And there was reluctancy, there still is, to a certain degree of individuals not understanding that they are susceptible, not understanding that there are ways in which to mitigate getting the virus to protect themselves, their family, their community. Not wanting to, being distrustful of getting the COVID vaccine to help protect themselves. And some people thought it was a conspiracy. They're going to implant some kind of computer chip in your body, that kind of thing. And somebody put it this way. I'm trying to remember I can't remember who put it this way. So for decades, for centuries, we've been fighting to gain access to medications, to immunizations, and this COVID pandemic hit, and we wanted to be first in line, before, and when the COVID pandemic hit, we wanted to be last in line. We're fighting not to have access to, so
right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, we've been spooked ever since that time back when they gave them shots for syphilis. You know,
Yeah.
they said it wasn't and killed so many people. And after that, they've been, since generation after generation, they've been spooked.
Well, the Tuskegee syphilis trial, they didn't actually give them syphilis, but this is about 850 African-American black men in Tuskegee, Alabama, who had come down, who had contracted syphilis. And there was a cure at the time, penicillin. And the United States Public Health Department of Health and Human Services Public Health System knew these guys had syphilis, but they deliberately denied them treatment, even though treatment was available, because they wanted to understand the natural consequences of untreated syphilis in this patient population. And it went all the way up to 1972.
Yeah.
When it leaked out that what was going on. And of course, and you know, I get it, that actually still influences our willingness not only to participate in clinical research trials that will develop medications, new medical therapeutics for us that are going to be more beneficial to us, but also it actually dissuades us from actually even going to get a health check out of fear of being used as a guinea pig, disrespected, that kind of thing. So, you know, I think it was Booker T. Washington said, and again, it's about acquiring knowledge and understanding the importance of how to take better care of ourselves through preventative medicine and preventative health screenings, early detection of disease. But understanding is just the first part. It was Booker T. Washington who said, knowledge is power, but only if acted upon. So yeah, we can listen and absorb the knowledge, but we actually have to take action. That's one of the things I've been most heavily engaged in, you know, again, over the past 30 years here in Cleveland, trying to figure out ways in which to better engage Black and brown populations, communities, individuals, to educate them about the importance of early detection of disease, preventative health screenings. And we know not everybody has access to health care. That, you know, Metro Health is a destination, a potential destination. We see and treat, evaluate patients regardless of their ability to pay. But we need to empower the community itself to take ownership of their own health care and take the steps to access these medical systems, physicians, healthcare providers. It's in their own best interest and that of their family and community as well. Wow.
Ooh, wait, man. I've learned a lot from this interview right here. I should write a book just about this interview.
Well, you know, everybody actually has a book in them. I'm telling you, everybody has a book in them.
I'm telling you.
And I asked my mentor, George Fraser from Power Networking and FraserNet.
Oh, yeah. FraserNet.
Yeah, years ago, I asked him, I said, listen, I'd be interested in writing a book because I read his book. So his book actually helped determine how best to start my Minority Men's Health Fair, Minority Men's Health Center. Okay. But he said, what you do, you get a shoebox. And if you have like little newspaper clippings or whatever it is, for, you know, articles you find on the internet, you know, didn't have an internet back then.
Yeah.
From the library, magazines, you put everything, you know, pictures in a shoebox. And over a period of time, you've compiled so much important information, things you've written, things you've heard people, you know, say or whatever. You put it in a shoebox, and then that's your book right there. You just assemble it and put it all together. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Come think about it, you're right.
Yeah. So,
look
success.
At that conception.
Yeah. Everybody. I still say everybody needs to go get George Fraser's. He's written like, I don't know, 8 or 10 books, but the two seminal books that really changed my life. Success Runs in Our Race and Race for Success. Yeah, those are still pertinent and relevant today.
Definitely. He's definitely an entrepreneur of his time. I'm telling you, yes, I've heard him speak many times. This is wonderful though. I mean, I like surrounding myself with powerful people like yourself and so many others. It makes you feel good and makes you want to go out and do more and do better.
You're saying you want to surround yourself with powerful people. I'm looking around.
Like you. Definitely. It's an honor to know you and have met you.
And I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. You're a very powerful person. You're educating the community. And again, you're going above and beyond. So really, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I was with Michelle Knight last night. You know, she had her event. She is now turned herself around and she's rescuing animals. And I thought that was incredible. You know, think about it. She has 31 animals at her home. She had this event so she could raise funds so she can get a building and put them all in.
What she went through, what she went through, and then she's able to do what she does now. I mean,
look at that.
Most people would not have been able to survive. I mean,
a basket case. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really. So God is good. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Modlin, for this interview. We appreciate you so much. Man, you can come back anytime you want. You know it.
So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get you back on our podcast as well, Music and Medicine.
Yes, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. Please do. And I tell you, keep on doing what you're doing. We appreciate you. We're proud of you. And you represent well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Getting Good Trouble with Laura Cowan. It airs every Thursday at 7 p.m. And I'm glad you tuned in on this one with our wonderful Dr. Charles Modlin. So salute and kudos to you. Don't forget to share and like and subscribe to this channel. And also, if you look down in the description below, you'll find all the links to what we're doing with our documentary, B, A Raised Fist Mixtape Volume 1. We're dedicating that to our all-time activist, Silver B. So you know Silver B, don't you? You remember Silver B, Dr. Modlin?
Of course, yes.
Yes, that's what we're dedicating this documentary to. So thank you again. You keep in touch, and we'll see you next week, guys. Take care.